Welcome to our last marketing session, which deals with marketing across borders. It's all about how would you market your product or service in an international marketing setting where, for example, a market has completely different cultural beliefs and values to your home, to your domestic market. The first thing I'd like to look at is the spectrum of involvement in international marketing. If you are producing your products here and you're only exporting them, for example, to other countries, your commitment and your involvement and the complexity is really low. However, if you are entering a global market, if you are producing in a different country and then sending your product or service to the people living in that country, obviously there's a very high commitment and it's very complex because there are certain aspects that you have to consider when you're doing this. And what we are going to do in this little lesson is we're going to look at how this is going to work if you are where you are entering a new market. There are different criteria as to how how a company chooses their foreign market. The first thing, and I think it's for anything, is the potential. Is there a potential for my product? How big is the market? How big is the competition? How many of the same products are already out there? What are the resources like? Will I get all the things I need? And do the customers actually want my product as well? And obviously looking at the customers also, what is their, how much money do they make, what is their income, and what is their disposable income as well. Then you would also look at the similarity, how close is the area or the country to myself. What about the access, the roads? Is it an island? Is it landlocked? So things like that as well. And obviously, then you've got, with that, also you've got the accessibility. How far is it away? Is it stable? Is it politically stable? How long does it take to, get, I don't know, parts over to this country? What's the delivery time? And then, how good are the communications? Do I speak the language? Do I need someone who speaks the language? Do they speak, do I assume everyone speaks English who's going to work with me as well? Then you've got to, if you look at those things, you consider, you consider the language. Is it something you speak? Is it something someone speaks? Is it something, if you're advertising that your slogan, for example, translates easily? What are the cultures and traditions? Do I have to adapt my marketing message so that I don't offend people and that it's ethically correct to market my product there? Do I have to slightly amend how I'm bringing the message across? Do I use a lot of pictures? Do I use a lot of writing? Does my slogan translate as well? What are the laws and regulations? How do people buy? What are their buying habits? Are there any barriers to entry? Standards of living, which obviously you have to look at with regards to your pricing as well. Media availability, and what media do the people use? Do they use Facebook? China has their own big online community, for example. They can't use Facebook. So you wouldn't, if you want to go into China, you probably wouldn't use Facebook as one of your advertising or social media tool. And then obviously, what's the competitive environment like? How many other companies are selling my product, are selling a similar product? Are those companies international companies as well? Or are they actually domestic and well-established domestic companies? Because again, customers know them and they will probably trust them more than trusting a new big international company coming into the market. Then there are a few key concepts. Okay, is the market attractive? How do I get there? What's the market segmentation? Again, what makes the biggest market? Is it families? Is it singles? Is it well earning? Do people earn a lot? Is it lower income? So again, these are things you have to think about. Do you have to standardize or adapt your product? which we're going to talk about in a minute. Trade between nations. What's the trade agreement between the UK and, I don't know, China, India, Japan, for example? Then you look at and how obviously is the country run as well. What sort of country is it? And then, how do you know that a market has potential? You need to have, again, you need to look at your demographics, at your population. Geography, is it easily accessible? Where are the main airports? Where are the main ports? Where will I actually physically be, or where will my offices physically be? What's the economy like? So you look at your pastel factors here. Okay, technology, socio-cultural factors, and obviously you have to look at the national plans and their goals as well. So again, these are all your your pastel factors you have to actually really look at before entering a new market. As I said before, we're going to talk about standardization or adaptation for international markets. So I mean, in general, the marketing concept, as it says, holds that marketing programs will be more effective if tailored to the unique needs of each targeted customer groups, which makes sense because people have different beliefs, values. Also, you can't charge the same price you charge for an iPod here, maybe in some other countries. However, if there is too much adaptation, it raises costs and dilutes global brand power. So if you are adapting too much to a market, are you actually still selling the product you initially wanted to sell and you're actually known for as well? So do you have to maybe standardize your product? Obviously if you look at it, you have to consider the international marketing mix. So there are arguments for adaptation, and there are arguments for standardization. If you look at adaptation, well, yeah, different markets, different customers. So the customers might have different needs. You need to adapt your product to their customer needs. Different infrastructure, varying levels of education. The conditions within the country might be different to where you are, and then again, what's the management experience. So you have to, not just your physical product has to be adapted, but also all your processes around it. So again, you look at your marketing mix, you look at your 7Ps, but you have to then sort of transfer them to the market you're going into and then see what you want to do. And then standardization is there a larger number of buyer similarities? Actually, is it just like in the UK, or pretty much like in the UK, and you don't have to adapt your product. You can send the same product. You standardize your products. Obviously, it's easier to control everything because it's your product. You're basically selling internationally, and then you've got a consistent brand image there as well. So, again, you have to look at your 7Ps, then you have to really do your market research in order to find out if you have to adapt or to standardize your product. And this is basically also what your what this chart is going to say. So if you, for example, have promotion is standardized, but the product is adapted, so obviously you only adapt the product, but you use the same promotion. So in some countries you have to adapt the promotion, but the product can stay. It's just because the message as it comes over, the marketing message as you send it over in your home country, in your domestic market, doesn't translate to the international market, for example, so you have to adapt your promotion. However, if you have to change both, obviously that means you have to product and promotion adapted. So you can't just see it black and white, you have to consider your options here as well. Product adaptation is adapting a product to meet local conditions, needs and wants. Communication adaptation is obviously where you adapt the marketing message to beliefs, values, what people can work with in this market, because not everyone can for example, if you have a Disney and it's a very over-the-top American style advertising campaign which works in the States, it might not work if you when they went into France, the whole Americanized model didn't work, and the Americanized advertising campaign, so they had to adapt it to the French market. And then the other thing is you've got product invention, where you create new products for foreign markets, where you obviously go this one step further rather than just introducing your already existing or slightly adapted product, but you invent something new. And then you obviously have to consider the pricing, and again, it depends on different factors how you price your product. What are the economic conditions? Is the country in a recession? Does everyone work? How high is the unemployment rate? How much money do people make? Who are the competitors? What do they charge? Again, laws and regulations. You need to look at the taxation system in the country as well, and the standards of living, and how much in general similar products cost in that country. And obviously you have to consider your costs there as well. Do you have to modify your product? Do you ship it over there, or do you produce it over in the country? Is production cost lower as well? What are the exchange rates if you're shipping it over to another country? Then the product decision. Yes, again, it all comes back to standardization. If you are standardizing, obviously you have a consistent, you send a consistent message, and you have a consistent image worldwide as well. It's got lower manufacturing costs because you don't have to, do one thing here and another thing somewhere else and another thing somewhere else. And obviously you don't need to duplicate your research because you've, basically done your research, you standardized your product, and you know it works. And I think it's quite an interesting example that Philips has 12 kinds of irons to serve just its European market. So rather than just one having one or two irons, they have 12 different products there. Then again, you have to also look at your packaging, because again, what we want here in the UK might not be something that the German market wants, for example. If you look at Germany, we're a bit more environmentally conscious, and if you wrapped your peppers in, I don't know, in plastic and in plastic again, we would not like that. Whereas here you can, you have 5 wrappings around a produce. Then, do your names and labels and colors translate? I mean, I'm sure everyone has come across a very funny incident where, the name means something completely different in the UK than it does in a different country. And I always just think of one of the licorice brands that we used to eat when we were little. Europeans like efficient, functional, recyclable boxes with understated design, which is true. Nothing too fancy, not too over the top. Japanese use packages as gift. And then again, for example, drinks are sold in smaller cans in Japan to fit their smaller hands, which is quite interesting. And again, labeling laws are different from country to country. So again, it's vital that you do the proper research there as well. Your distribution channels, how does it work in different countries? And you've got examples here for Japan and China, where you have, wholesalers, agents, brokers, and retailers in Japan versus a very inadequate distribution system in somewhere like China and India. You also have to look at your cultural differences, and I mentioned them before. So you've got stuff like values and beliefs, eating habits, food preparation, social class, living arrangements, education, stuff like that. So there, what is a social taboo? What can you talk about? What can't you talk about? What is accepted, what isn't accepted. So you have to consider this as well. So it's not easy breaking into new markets. And you do cross-cultural analysis there as well. Motivations, behavior patterns, values, decision making. Who makes the decisions? When do people make the decision? Do they do it after dinner when they're watching TV, or do they do it in the day when they, when they see the billboards when they're sitting on the bus? So are your promotional methods appropriate, and what is your best distribution channel? Is it online? Is it face-to-face? Is it through wholesalers, retailers, over the phone? Again, you need to know how to get your product to the customers. And it's easy to assume things. Yeah, time stays the same across cultures. We all have the same need to belong to a group, and we all have the same amount of space. Well, you can argue that one. So, and then the stereotypes. I'm not going to go through these, but and it's quite funny to read as well, and it's quite interesting to read. But we all have stereotypes, how we see people, how we see different nations. How the British see the Germans, the French, the Americans, how the Germans see different people, how we see Chinese or Japanese, Australian people. So again, you have to get over these as well in a way. And then there's a lot of non-verbal communication. And non-verbal communication can often get you into problems as well, because certain gestures in one country means something really nice and good, but in another country it might be very offensive. So, for example, if you use your index and middle finger to show the number 2 in Germany, it doesn't mean anything. That's how we show 2. We don't use the thumb and the index finger to show that we want, I don't know, 2 packets of crisps. We very often use the index and middle finger. Whereas in the UK, if you do that and you do it the wrong way around, it's offensive. So again, and it's then also, tone of voice, personal space. I hate people standing too close to me, for example. I can't stand people taking my room. And then again, you've got the cultural environment. You look at your politics there as well. Is it peaceful? Is it stable? Are there common values? How are the relations with other countries around them? So things like that. Economic factors. How wealthy is the country? How much disposable income do they have? Is it, what are the labor relations like? Are there a lot of strikes? For example, if you go into France with a product or a production, there are lots of things you have to consider. They have a right to strike whenever they want to, basically. So, labor relations are not necessarily that good. What's the public admin like? What's the economic growth? So again, is it worth it going into this country? So again, there are loads of level of unemployment. Okay, this basically means that you've got your level of unemployment. So is it high? Is it low? What can you contribute to the economic situation as well? And then you look at the foreign debt and in comparison with the national income as well. So these are all the factors that you have to consider when you want to introduce your product or service to an international market. Obviously, there is a lot more to consider. I did not go through a lot of the legal aspects or any of the legal aspects later, but this is what you would have to research once you have entered the market. This concludes our marketing module. I'd like you to now fill in the module registration form, module monitoring form, please, for me as well, which is in the documents on Blackboard. And good luck with finishing off your marketing pitch, and I'm looking forward to listening to that.